Hello dear friends, you are on the Ruslan Bailov channel. So friends, let's begin with an interesting piece of news that appeared yesterday. Relatives of the chief maintenance engineer of the Patriot complex filed a petition on the Ukrainian president's website requesting that Denis Slakan be awarded the title of Hero of Ukraine. They also shared details of his death, claiming that the debris of a Russian missile, which he, of course, had shot down, fell, and while he was trying to extinguish the fire at the complex, he died in the blaze. In real life, everything is much simpler. Most likely a Russian missile struck the complex at the moment when all the personnel were inside. This is the first time we've received such confirmation from the Ukrainian side. Meanwhile, fighting continues, and we keep studying the situation at the front. So friends, trouble has come to the AFU, and serious trouble at that. We've already gotten used to Russian breakthroughs of 4 kilometers, 5 kilometers, or even more than 5 kilometers. Just half a year ago, an advance of 2-3 kilometers was considered something extraordinary, and happened at best once a week. What does this tell us? Of course, it indicates the gradual exhaustion of the armed forces of Ukraine. Otherwise, such breakthroughs simply wouldn't be possible. And just yesterday, there was a significant breakthrough of 7 kilometers. That's one of the issues we'll discuss today. The second point, according to Western intelligence, not only Western, but also confirmed by Ukrainian sources and even by guys on the ground, is that Russian forces are concentrating huge numbers of troops in the sector, from Pokrovsk to Chasiv Yar. A week and a half ago, there were about 100,000 Russian soldiers there. According to the latest updated figures received yesterday, there are already 150,000, and the number keeps growing. A decisive battle and a decisive push are being prepared. We'll talk about where the strike will be directed and what the prospects are. But let's take things step by step. Friends, allow me a moment of your attention. As usual, I sincerely ask you to subscribe to the channel. If you've been watching my videos more than once but haven't subscribed yet, please do so. By subscribing, you help the channel grow. Thanks to those who already subscribed, and let's continue. Let's begin with the Russian breakthrough, because it's directly connected to this upcoming decisive battle. The breakthrough occurred in the Lyman direction. They advanced from positions south of the village of Zelenaya Dolina up to the northeastern outskirts of Novoselivka. As I said at the very start, the distance covered by Russian troops was more than 7 kilometers. But the most important part isn't even this number, but the fact that the village of Shandryholov has come under full Russian control. There is video evidence confirming this, including footage from Azov fighters. Combat footage has surfaced from the southern part of Shandryholov. Well, combat. Azov's tanks were firing at Russian positions inside residential houses in Shandryholov's southern outskirts, and then they pulled back. Even such footage is valuable, as it confirms the success of the Russian army. And now, from the current positions, some very interesting prospects are opening up. First of all, Russian troops are on the immediate approaches to Derilov. This is a small village consisting of just one street about 1.5 kilometers long. Russian positions are now only 300 meters from its northwestern edge. Derilov in turn opens the way to Drobyshev, and Drobyshev is already a suburb of Lyman. By the way, Russian troops are already close to it. The distance from their positions to its outskirts is just 1.7 kilometer. But while everyone is focused on Lyman, new prospects are opening up toward another city. Look here, Sviatohirsk. Let me explain the prospects for an offensive on Sviatohirsk. During this 7-kilometer push, Russian troops reached the northeastern outskirts of Novoselivka. That's not a village but an urban-type settlement. Since Russian forces are literally on the edge of it, its storming is inevitable. And once it is taken, and sooner or later it will be, look where the road opens up. Next comes the settlement of Yarova and the city of Sviatohirsk. And from the current positions, Sviatohirsk is not much farther than Lyman. 7.5 kilometer to Lyman, 9 kilometers to Sviatohirsk. Just a 1.5 kilometer difference. And capturing Sviatohirsk is no less important than capturing Lyman, because from there the Russians can place the Izium-Slovyansk highway under full drone control. In fact, Russian troops already partially control it. In the past 24 hours alone, they destroyed more than 10 vehicles here, being just 20 kilometers away from the highway. Imagine what will happen if Russian troops reach Stepnohirsk. The distance will be only 9 kilometers. If Russian troops reach Stepnohirsk, the highway will become completely unsuitable for use as Sloviansk's main supply artery. And right now, this road is the main supply route. That's why I personally have no doubt that alongside the advance toward Lyman, the Russian army will also move towards Sviatohirsk. I can't say exactly when, but I think that by the end of the year, Russian troops will likely reach both Lyman and Sviatohirsk, and the main battles for these cities will most likely unfold next year. Now let's move south. All Western outlets, all Western analytical centers, and all Ukrainian media are saying that the Russian army has redeployed significant forces here to the sector near Pokrovsk and Chasiv Yar. I can confirm from my sources, guys are saying additional troops are indeed being redeployed here, and constantly. At least 5 Russian brigades were transferred from Sumy region to the Dnipropetrovsk sector, plus a whole division was pulled from Kherson region and redeployed to Chasiv Yar. According to Western analytical centers, about 150,000 Russian troops are currently concentrated in this sector from Pokrovsk to Chasiv Yar. I cannot confirm or deny that exact figure, since I don't have access to such data, and even if I did, I probably wouldn't disclose it. But the fact that serious forces have been concentrated here is undeniable. For what purpose? Obviously, to prepare a powerful strike that will mark the beginning of the autumn military campaign. What objectives will be set here? Well, without a doubt, to push forward in Pokrovsk, Myrnohrad, Rodinske, Belitska, and reach Dobropilya. In other words, if we are talking specifically about the Pokrovsk sector, the main goal for the autumn campaign will be to capture these 4 cities. If this is achieved, and hypothetically by December, the front line runs like this, Dobropilya, Serhivka, Novoserhivka, it will be considered a success. But that's if we are talking about the Pokrovsk sector. But what about the plans in the Chasiv Yar area? Let me remind you, an entire division has been redeployed here. Moreover, assault operations have already resumed, considering the Ministry of Defense's statement about the capture of Markov, which has not yet been confirmed with footage, so mapmakers are not coloring it red. We are waiting for that evidence. Here, the prospects are quite interesting. I think the movement will follow the line Markova-Belokuzminovka, and then, instead of heading toward Kramatorsk, it will turn toward Druzhkivka. Here's why. Movement is coming from the south, from Poltavka toward Rayske. If it is possible to reach Druzhkivka via Belokuzminovka and simultaneously approach Rayske, the AFU will have no choice but to leave Konstantinivka. Apologies for the tautology. They might leave, or they might stay there in a blockade. So the main goal for the autumn campaign here is to reach Druzhkivka from the north and south, forcing the AFU to abandon Konstantinivka. Because if Russian troops launch a frontal assault, the city is fairly large with a huge industrial zone, so getting bogged down there could take a long time, at least 6 to 8 months, maybe even a year. That's why additional Russian forces are being concentrated here now. At the same time, while the main events unfold here, the Vostok Group will continue moving deeper into Dnipropetrovsk Oblast, which they are currently doing and doing quite effectively. The prospects here are rather good. Russian troops have already advanced almost 8 kilometers, and the movement continues. Currently, fighting is ongoing in the village of Koroshe. In the near future, the next objective is, of course, to reach Veliko Mikhailivka, which automatically creates a threat to Pokrovsk. So we will be watching closely. Now let's turn to the political arena. The US is winding down military support for countries in Europe bordering Russia, reports the Financial Times. The outlet states that Washington is stopping funding for programs that train and equip the armies of Eastern European countries bordering Russia. Last week, the Pentagon informed European diplomats that assistance would no longer be provided. Affected is the program through which $1.6 billion was sent to Europe from 2018-2022, with the main recipients being Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania. At the same time, major arms purchases via foreign military sales are not affected. Financial Times notes that this course aligns with the strategy of Pentagon advisor Elbridge Colby, who calls for shifting focus to the Indo-Pacific region to contain China and reduce the risk of conflict over Taiwan. Zelensky also took a hit. Zelensky jumps higher when Trump says jump, writes Bloomberg. Agency correspondent Oliver Crook said that a visit by Zelensky to Moscow can only be imagined in one scenario, if Donald Trump insists on it. According to him, after the disastrous visit to the Oval Office, Zelensky completely restructured his approach and now acts solely based on signals from Washington. When Trump says jump, Zelensky asks how high, and jumps even higher, Kruk noted. He reminded that in the case of negotiations in Turkey, Zelensky immediately boarded a plane and announced his readiness to meet with Putin. Though the dialogue ultimately did not occur, the journalist emphasized, imagining a visit by Zelensky to Moscow is extremely difficult, but to demonstrate loyalty to Trump, he could theoretically attempt it. Regarding the coalition of the willing and Ukraine's prospects, another meeting of the coalition was once again empty. Its main goal was to lure Trump into the game, but he paused. And Witkoff even criticized the EU, which buys Russian energy through India and other intermediaries, reports the Telegram channel Legitimny. Zelensky tried to use this meeting to increase arms supplies and funding, but as usual received only promises. He even started showing some frustration toward the sponsors. He had hoped to announce new arms supplies after this meeting, but got nothing. Bargaining continues, and each side will try to manipulate, but no one intends to make peace. It is already clear that this winter will be much harder for Ukraine than the last. The population should prepare, and there are many reasons. We have long warned about the Black Winter: cuts in funding, increased destruction, intensified strikes by Russian forces on energy, gas and fuel infrastructure, rising global market prices, political problems in Europe. France will soon start facing difficulties. Reserves of all kinds are shrinking. Ukraine's economy is falling. Infrastructure is wearing out. There is a shortage of personnel and specialists. This scenario benefits the authorities, as they can use it for PR, writes Legitimny. Zelensky confirmed our information that he requested funding for developing Ukrainian missiles. But everyone understands that this project requires money to be quickly implemented, reports Legitimny. For the development of our long-range weapons, we lack funds. We have a $6 billion deficit. This is a serious challenge because these aren't the first $6 billion we need, nor the last, so we are working on it, Zelensky said. From his words, it follows that sponsors gave nothing at the coalition summit in Paris. It was empty, so he decided to publicly complain. This is yet another personal failure. Everyone should understand that funding will be reduced each time, which will lead to large-scale problems at the front and in the rear. Inflation will rise, as will poverty. The AFU forces deployed here have not yet restored defense around the entire Pokrovsk agglomeration. They are stuck in fighting and costly assaults under constant strikes from FABs, rockets, drones, artillery, and so on. Losses are enormous. All our sources indicate that the administration in Bankova and Zelensky Ermak-Sursk's puppets have no strategic plan for conducting military operations. On the Pokrovsk front, everyone was sent due to the urgent need to stop internal dissent before negotiations. Opinion of the German press. Berliner Zeitung. Merz, Macron and Starmer disgrace Europe. This is a chorus of old eunuchs. The coalition of the willing, represented by German Chancellor Merz, UK Prime Minister Starmer, and French President Macron, is discussing sending troops to Ukraine. However, Germany has twice attempted to fight Russia and was defeated. This should not be forgotten, writes Berliner Zeitung columnist Udo Norden. Should German soldiers be sent to Ukraine to provide security guarantees alongside NATO allies? Chancellor Friedrich Merz claims that as the Federal Republic of Germany, we are extremely interested and bear significant responsibility for our participation. According to the Chancellor, these issues must be discussed within the coalition, up to the question of whether decisions requiring an appropriate mandate will need to be made. This means that sending Bundeswehr soldiers abroad requires Bundestag approval. Merz's party colleague, chair of the Defense Committee Thomas Rehkamp, is even more candid. The CDU deputy believes that Europeans, together with Americans, must be ready to repel an attack. Behind these statements lies the willingness to wage war against Russia with German soldiers involved. This would be the third time since 1918 that German soldiers participate in combat operations on the territory of modern Ukraine. Previously, the German Empire supported the Kyiv government, which later collapsed. Their appointed governor, General Pavlo Skoropadsky, was taken to Berlin. The second German military operation in Ukraine took place from 1941–44 against the Soviet Union and ended in Berlin's total defeat. At that time, Ukrainians also fought alongside Germany, for example in the 201st Schutzmannschaft Battalion. One of its commanders, Roman Shukhevich, is now considered a national hero in Ukraine. Thanks for watching, friends. Make sure to like, subscribe, and hit the bell so you don't miss any updates. Stay safe, stay informed, and I'll see you in the next video.